Kia ora. Kia ora everyone, really nice to be here. I apologise if I'm a little bit weird today. I'm very jet lagged after just getting back from overseas. But I have the awful talk about what's been happening to our Tarapirohe with feral cats, particularly using our unfortunate case study this season of Bridge Island. You may have seen it on TV and read about it in the news where over a 3-day period, pretty much our entire colony on Bridge Island got wiped out by one individual feral cat. So I'm sort of just going to talk through the whole process about what happened and some little points of discussion afterwards. This is probably telling everybody everything they already know, but of course Tarapirohe, endemic, nationally endangered, in New Zealand's threat status. They breed on our southern rivers, and 50% of the breeding population are in those Canterbury rivers, so pretty important locations for us here. And of course they've got multiple threats, lots and lots of predation threats by pretty much everything that could possibly eat them will eat them. Invasive plants clogging up our rivers and their nesting areas, and of course our human activities, everything from zooming around on your quad bikes, water extraction, farming and gravel. So our project is part of a big wider project, but looking at the different tools to enhance Tarapirohe, the terns, breeding success on the rivers, and we're focused on the Waiau Toa and Akron up in northern Canterbury. So we use a range of tools: trapping, island enhancement, weed removal and chick shelters. We're monitoring that outcome, so breeding success and identifying reasons for failures. And we're looking at areas with enhancement and without enhancement, what we call treatment or non-treatment areas. Of course, we do all sorts of other things, and we talked about the kahu banding and things last year. We do residual predator monitoring with trail cameras before and after the season, and we're doing a lot of banding and resighting of the terns themselves. But today we're just going to focus on the feral cat side of things. So this is our study area and where we do all the monitoring. And so we've got the Clarence River and the Akron River, and Bridge Island is pretty much right in the confluence there. And so with that outcome monitoring, we're looking at what roles do those conservation tools we're using have on the breeding success of Tarapirohe. So we collect data on eggs and chicks, so all through the stages of that breeding cycle. We do aerial surveys, so very early in the breeding season, we fly down the river systems with a helicopter and locate all the colonies. Then we do walk-through surveys. So once we know where those colonies are, we walk through each of those colonies and find individual nests and start collecting that breeding data. And most of it is we're using a lot of cameras. So in every single one of our colonies we're monitoring, we monitor about 10% of the nests with cameras to try and identify causes of failures and monitor that chick shelter use. And we've got a few challenges to monitoring predation, of course. So, we're only covering 10% of the nests. So we have to estimate predation and sometimes, and we can confirm it. So often the culprit can be unknown. Your eggs might just disappear, so we're not too sure what that has happened. It could be a multitude of reasons. We can confirm predation because, of course, we can have bite marks, we can have egg remains, we can have them confirmed on cameras and clear sign. And some of the estimated work is, of course, you can see some sign on a neighbouring nest that has had a camera on its neighbour, and we can ID that's happened, and it's likely that the following nest or the neighbouring nest was also impacted. And of course, everybody knows within 1 to 3 days, chicks hatching, they can disappear very quickly and hide under a rock and are very difficult to see. So you have to be really clear about what you're monitoring and relating it to that predation event. So Bridge Island is quite a good size colony that we've got, so it's just under 3 hectares. It's right in the middle of our trapping area, so we have 26 kilometres of traps on both sides of the rivers, a combination of all types of trapping, so all kill traps. Bridge Island itself was an enhanced island, so it's been graded, has had the channels extended on both sides, and weeds have been removed. And we've also deployed chick shelters. So if you're not sure what a chick shelter is, it's just a wooden triangle that is put in place, held in place by rocks, so that chicks can go in and underneath and shelter from both avian predators, but also the heat. We've found that chicks have been significantly impacted by heat, and it does cause death of several of our chicks. Sometimes on the river here, temperatures can get to 45 degrees, as recorded on our cameras, so pretty extreme heats in summer. And there were 95 nests this season on Bridge Island, and this island had higher than normal coverage because it was one of our best islands and the biggest colony. So we actually put 29% of those nests were covered by cameras. So that's our camera coverage. So it's randomly sort of selected across the island, trying to get as many as we can, but also just to give that sort of coverage across. So you can see where all the nests were and where those cameras were placed along there. So just going through some of the results. So we actually had quite a lot of birds and nests monitored. You know, we talked about the early stages of the walkthroughs. 27th of November, we had, 34 active nests with chicks and 51 with eggs still, and a few more than 100 adults flying around at the time. So that was pretty nice, great to have, fantastic colony to be monitoring. Unfortunately, by the 2nd of December, we had 30 adults only present, and 2 of them were found dead, and a lot of nests have been predated, both at the egg stage and the chick stage. So, our nest numbers were just going crazy. But we still had some active nests, and we still had some both with chicks and with eggs. Unfortunately, though, a few days later, when we went back to check again, everything was gone, and no adults were present at the colony. We found a few more dead adults, but most of the adults had just dispersed to somewhere else and basically abandoned the colony, and everything was eaten. And so that was incredibly depressing. And so this is just a map showing where some of those failures had been. So the failures happened before the 27th of November. 3 were due to flooding. So there was a flood event, but most of this island being enhanced was much higher, so the rest of the colony wasn't impacted. And 3 nests have been predated, 2 by unknown things, but 1 by a spur-wing plover. So we knew that had happened. And 2, some eggs had just disappeared. So just a few failures before that. And then, of course, the rest failed by the 2nd of December, and then by the remainder by the 10th of December. And it was our friendly cat. So unfortunately, this site, although it had been enhanced, this summer had been a very dry one, and the river flow dropped very, very quickly. And one side of the colony became very low water or connected back to the mainland. So this cat could quite happily roam across. And as Dean had been saying, predated everything from eggs, chicks to adults. So it was pretty devastating for our team to walk across and see this carnage. So yeah, you can see the visits we had were checking, and once we hit the 2nd of December, pretty much everything was just being dead and death everywhere. So it was pretty grim, just lots and lots of predated nests and chicks and eggs. And we also found that this cat just moved around. So the footage just showed it just roamed constantly around, killing nests in different locations, always starting at one edge of the island, and then just walking through and going to everywhere else it could possibly find an active nest with something to eat. And so across our whole region, we monitored 315 nests. Just over half of those hatched, which was great. But 75 of those nests were predated at the egg stage, and 78 were predated at the chick stage. But we still managed to get a fair few fledglings out of there. But cats were our main predator this year. We, in fact, actually got no avian predators recorded on any of our cameras. And we had a little bit of flooding events caused some destruction of some earlier, but not too much. But scary numbers, basically 60% were predated by cats at Bridge Island, 40% across the entire network of nests we were monitoring, and 66% of our chicks were predated at Bridge Island, or 25% across the entire monitoring network. So although we've got a lovely picture of our spur-wing eating our eggs and predating it, the cats were our primary problem across our region. And unfortunately, we think it's the same cat that did a lot of our destruction the year before. I mean, it had the same patterns, so this is a great thing. We have hundreds and hundreds of images of this cat, both from Bridge Island and the same site, the same year. And you can see, basically, if you look at it, it pretty much works out to be the same individual, 2023-24 season, and then the following year. But thank goodness our trapping team, Mia's Contracting, managed to catch this cat in the end of this season by doing some targeted leg hold trapping for us to get this cat. So hopefully that's the end of this story of this one, but it's not the end of the story for cats completely. But yeah, it's pretty scary that one individual cat can make this much of an impact. And so yeah, just backing up what Dean and everybody else has been saying, cats are one of our most major threats on braided rivers and can be at this individual levels. This one cat wiped out our colony, best colony that we've had in a long time. So what we're doing, of course, there's lots of things that we can be doing and are doing at the moment. We're doing trapping, this is our long line of traps, and then we also do some targeting trapping. We also do some nocturnal shooting, spotlighting with cats at night. Of course, in some wider schemes, we can do some predator-proof fencing. Nothing being done on our rivers at the moment for that. Some sausage trials for 1080 being done in the region, which worked really, really well in the Clarence, so that was amazing. There's some new AI traps that are being developed and hopefully be trialled in that. And then, of course, working out on those regulations. I mean, and, being political here, we need to really do some action about cats nationally. We need a national cat strategy, both for feral cats and domestic cats. We've got to stop hiding behind this at the moment. Cats are a huge issue, and we need to really push that. We need to actually have some action about cats in our conservation regions and even in our cities. So yeah, we need to put some pressure on for cat control, and it is a real pity that it isn't on the predator-free 2050 mission yet, but hopefully that's going to change. And of course, we have a problem with river flow. In our rivers, of course, the water maintenance is not controlled. So we do have some extreme low flows and we do have some extreme high flows. So we do lose a lot of nests to flooding. But of course, a lot of our problem with our predator events is when our river flow drops significantly and our water channels dry out and create our islands becoming back to mainlands. So, we've got to think of some ways to help deal with this. We have huge variation in our river flow in the Clarence in particular, and that can create some real problems for access. However, just so that's not completely depressing, slight little bit of hope right at the end here. There is an encouraging long-term picture. Some of our helicopter surveys, we have seen more and more birds and more colonies. So hopefully this is a good sign that some of our work is doing really well and that terns are slightly increasing. Of course, they're very mobile and they change their minds about where they nest along our rivers all the time. But yeah, we've been monitoring them for a long time now. Amy's going to tell some more of the stories about different actions that are working together. But hopefully we've got a slightly better outlook than everything, as long as we can get on top of our predators and particularly our cats. And I can't do this work without everybody. ECAN's amazing, DOC's been amazing, with lots of funding and things, lots of help out in the field, and all of our people who come and help us ban terns and watch terns, and the predator trapping team with Mia's Contracting doing an awesome job keeping on top of those predators. So yeah, that's a fantastic project to be part of. Anybody got any questions? And I hope I haven't depressed you all before morning tea. Yeah. That's all right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're ahead of schedule.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's really good.